Hey guys, Jason Smith here with Hobo Fort Survival. And this week on Smart Tips and Tricks, we're in upstate New York. We've got snow on the ground, temps are gonna drop below freezing. I'm not making it back to my truck and all I got's what's on my back, so let's start surviving. A lot of different scenarios could put you in the situation I find myself in now. It's gonna get cold, got snow on the ground, gonna be below freezing tonight. You know, maybe I'm on a shed hunt, day hike. Maybe I'm on a hunt and I gotta run overnight because I just shot an animal or something and I gotta stay there because I want a good recovery the next day. Point is, I got a limited amount of gear because I was traveling light for whatever scenario I was in, and I'm gonna focus on water, shelter, and fire to make it through the night. That way I can get back to my camp or get back to my vehicle the next morning. So with the limited stuff that I got on my back, I'm gonna show you exactly what I would do to make it through the night. All right, so the survival priorities I'm thinking about tonight are water, shelter, and fire. All right, I got water flowing through the stream through this lowland area here. So while I'm here, I'm gonna knock my pack off and I'm going to collect some water and press it through my grail. And that way, as I move up into the woods, I've already got that survival priority taken care of. So this is the titanium grail, all right, the newest model they have out. So I can boil water in this as well as purify water through the filtration system. Same as their GeoPress, except it's titanium. So I can actually press that water through into my, my clean container, same as prior. But now I can come back at some point and I can put water in this titanium lower and I can actually boil water here. So get a drink. Throw that in my pack. I got clean water now to move up into the woods and start working on shelter and fire. So I'm going to move up out of this bottom. This is a great resource down here with the water, but I can always come back down to this if need be. I want to move up out of this bottom because there's no trees down here to block the wind that's blowing through. So as this wind blows through, it's just robbing me through convection of any heat my body's producing. It's also very wet down here. You see, as I took a knee, my knee's all wet from kneeling here. So I'm gonna need to get these pants dried out. I need to be a little bit more judicious in how I take a knee and whatnot, because I don't want to get my gear soaking wet, because then you're looking at hypothermia. So I'm gonna move up in here to these woods and start looking for resources along the way for setting up shelter and starting fire. As I'm walking along, all these sticks growing up here, they're all in the wind. They're up off the ground, so they're gonna be dry. Any ambient wind that's blowing through here is drying these out. These are snapping, which tells me they're dry and which tells me I can use them for fire, as opposed to trying to get down into this wet stuff and harvesting anything down here that's gonna have to be dried out before it can bust. So I'm gonna start moving through, taking down anything that'll snap off for me that I can use for fire as I move up into the woods here that are going to block the wind and provide me with more dry resources. So I've been working up through this area here, scanning for resources, collecting dry materials. There's a ton of great materials through here as far as up off the ground and out of the snow. So fire, once we get the fire established, we shouldn't have a problem feeding that fire throughout the night. What I'm surveying the landscape for, though, is a proper place to set up a shelter. Now, remembering, I don't want to do a ton of work. I want to let nature do that work for me. And up here, a tree has fallen and wedged itself between this stand of trees. I'm going to move up to that and I'm going to establish whether or not that's stable and if there's any widowmakers or anything that potentially harm me as I set up a shelter there. And then I'm going to set up a lean-to debris hut style shelter where I can put a long fire in front of it for the night to stay warm. I've moved into this area because of this down tree here. Nature has already done the work for me to establish a shelter here. This is a ridge pole that's relatively stable. I'm going to assess the stability of this. I'm going to kind of push on this tree, see if this thing's going to dislodge. Seems very stable. We're doing an overnight here. Again, wind may affect this, but the reason I'm in this location is because I'm just off the military crest of the hill and I'm up from the bottom. There's a lot of trees in here to block the wind, which is going to help me stay warmer when I don't have that convection stealing my heat off of me. So this is a good location. We have a stable tree. I look around for widowmakers. This tree here clearly is where this broke off of. This is stable. Around here I got a dead tree up here I'm not really concerned about. Another dead tree here, not concerned about from where I'm going to be laying. So I feel very comfortable setting up in this location. Again, off the side of the hill, so I'm not pulling any of that ambient wind that's whipping across the top of that hill, and I'm out of the low ground where that ends up being the cold sump tonight anyway. As that cold air settles down into this low ground, it's going to settle right on top of that stream down there. So I want to be up from that, but off the top of the hill and out of the bottom. As I work through here, I'm really trying to take advantage of the materials that are on the ground, because I don't want to put myself in a situation where I'm overheating. Cold kills. We've heard that many times working in snowy or Arctic or very cold environments. So when I find myself starting to overheat, I need to slow down, potentially down dress a layer, and stay in a situation where I'm comfortably cold. If I start to overheat, I start to sweat, then my core temperature is going to start to decrease as that cold air blows through here. That sweat could easily start to freeze and bring my core body temperature down. So I definitely don't want to sweat while I'm out here. So you pace yourself based on the time of day and how much time you think you have left. As I look, we have a couple hours of daylight left, so I'm trying to be smart and use some of the materials that are around here and not exert myself too much. It's another reason why I chose this location, because there's a lot of down material around here that I can, like this piece here, not very heavy, not hard to work with. I can take this and put it between this tree, and I can walk this way, and I can break this limb with no axe, no saw, or no materials, and then bring this up and use this as part of my bedding. And basically, I'm trying to make a bed. I want my feet going downhill, I want my head uphill. So I'm going to clear out the snow here, in which the hemlock boughs are going to go on. And I'm going to start building the frame of my bed using a log cabin style building method. So it's absolutely crucial that I get myself off the ground here, especially in these snowy, wet conditions. If you lay yourself down on that snowy, wet ground, it will leach every last bit of heat out of your body. If you get up and you thermalize yourself getting down to bare earth, and then you insulate yourself using boughs or some type of grasses or some type of material of that sort, that insulates you from that heat loss and allows you, kind of creates an air bubble underneath you for you to exist in. And it holds that heat, so any heat you radiates into that kind of the air pocket underneath you. It's no different than as you wear your clothes in cold weather climates. You dress in loose layers to trap a bubble of warm air in between the layers of your clothing. You're doing the same thing with this bed here. See some good down ones over here. Not to work too hard for. All right, as you can see here, guys, I've grabbed a couple armfuls of hemlock boughs. These hemlock boughs represent a characteristic that I'm looking for in this environment, and you should as well in a cold weather environment where you're trying to achieve some type of thermalization and insulation from the ground. I'm looking for a resource that is soft, right? These are relatively soft, but they're airy because they're separated here. And as I throw those in there, inside the crib here, these are gonna create air pockets that I'm gonna lay on to create that mattress. So essentially, I'm not looking for specifically hemlock boughs. This could have been yellow pine, white pine. It could have been any type of conifer. In this, it just so happens that here in upstate New York, we have a lot of hemlocks in this area. So I'm gonna exploit the fact that they're low hanging, and I can achieve grabbing these with no use of my knife. I can snap these right off so I don't take a chance of cutting myself, and I can fill this crib with these hemlock boughs to create the mattress that I'm looking for. So I'm gonna run these longitudinal here, or long ways, inside the crib first, and then I'm gonna run these sideways in the crib. And that just achieves a little bit different of a weave as I lay these in here. So I'm gonna stack them long and short ways as I build up the 12 to 18 inches of hemlock boughs inside the crib. I'm being cognizant as I'm laying these in here. If there's any really sharp snaps of where I broke these off, I'm knocking those sharp snaps off of these to keep myself from stabbing myself with the boughs as I lay in here, and tuck some of those sharps under the back side of my log cabin as I lay those in here long ways, short ways. Notice, guys, it's kind of common sense that I've constructed my bed and then the plan to build the shelter around the bed. However, common sense isn't common in a situation where you find yourself having to stay the night out in these cold weather temperatures. You want to make sure you build your bed first, build your shelter around your bed. If you built your shelter first and then you tried to get in here amongst your shelter and lay your boughs in here and construct this bed, it's going to be much more difficult to build a nice soft bed for you. Build your soft bed, build your shelter around it, build your fire, build your survival. We've got a great base layer of hemlock boughs in. Remember, this is always an upgrade. You know, I'm going to be out collecting materials to start building the shelter around the crib now, and while I'm out there, I'll be collecting more hemlock boughs that are available to bring back. So this is constantly upgrading these hemlock boughs, but this is a good base to get started with the shelter around it. All right, climb into the mattress here. You can see the crib is doing its job, which is designed to hold the hemlock boughs in place so they don't spread as I lay in here. So I'd be laying in here tonight like this. Long fire in front of me here. But to build the shelter back behind me for a windbreak and as a fire reflector to reflect that fire back to me, and then close in the top and bottom of the shelter to hold heat as that heat comes off of the fire into the crib. So now I've got the crib where I want it. I've got boughs inside the crib to lay on to get me up off the ground. Next step, shelter. So over here getting some hemlock boughs, and some of them are getting a little hard to reach. But getting these hemlock boughs to stitch up the back of the shelter, and I see this yellow birch here. So while I'm out, I'm always looking for other resources. I know fire's coming next. I'm working on shelter now. I want to go ahead and harvest some of this birch bark while I'm here and peel this off this birch. This birch is dead, you know, be falling soon. But all this birch bark up here is dry. I want to go ahead and sock that away to help improve my chances of getting my fire started when I go to start my fire. And all I'm doing is I'm taking some of this bark and peeling it around, Wheeling it around the tree, trying to get the largest pieces that I can. This is very flammable, not unlike river birch or paper birch, all the same characteristics for fire, just some yield larger pieces than others. Paper birch, you see that used in a lot of basketry and or containers and things of that sort, but has all the same properties for fire. So it burns readily available once you get a flame to it. Let's go back and keep snaking these in to the back side of the shelter. All right, so finishing off the shelter here on the short term, right? Shelters are always a constant upgrade, all right? But based on our current ambient temperature, lack of precipitation, I've built a nice windbreak here, blocking that wind that could sweep away any heat that I would have coming off my body. I've wrapped it around to accomplish kind of a 3 sides. This is always something I want to continue to upgrade as I move around and collect firewood. But right now, getting short on time, my focus now is to get that fire started. So as you can see here, I've cleared out this spot down to bare earth, as I did with my crib here before I put my boughs in. I did that to establish a baseline for where I can lay my fire lay. I want my fire built up off the ground, away from the moisture, away from the cold, to allow that fire to take hold. If there was 4 feet of snow here, I would then have to lay those sticks down and create a base for that fire to start on. You can't start a fire directly on top of snow. It'll melt through the snow and then you'll lose your fire. So you have to create a buffer basically between your fire and the cold surface of this ground. This ground is cold, it's wet, and it will leach away any heat from my fire. And remember, the fire triangle is heat, air, and fuel. So if I lose heat, I'm going to lose part of the fire triangle, and I'm not going to have a successful fire. So I want to build a fire lay or a base in which my fire can lay on. So I'll be able to capture heat with that long fire. So it'll be maybe 3/4 the length of the actual crib itself. What I want to do right now is take some of this larger wood, and I want to build a base down here, a fire base for my fire lay. Get a good base of sticks, and then that way I can put my real small, easily ignitable stuff on top of it prior to lighting my fire. The worst thing you can do is light your fire and not have all your materials at hand. So you want to have all your materials on standby, your small or easy to light tinder materials to your kindling to your larger sustaining fuel. You want to build a fire, have everything you need to build a fire on the onset that you can walk away from and collect more materials. Plenty of down trees around here to capitalize on for firewood for this evening. But I want to bring all that firewood close. So as I start to go and move around and collect the materials I need for this long fire, remember I'm grabbing sticks that are 3/4 the length of my crib to lay onto this long fire, and then I'm going to establish the fire in several different places along the actual fire lay, the long fire, and then the pieces will be quite large, 3/4 the length of the bed that I lay on here. So those are the pieces that I'm looking for as I move around and collect firewood. This tinder bundle is built from about 8 or 9 different things that I harvested down there. I'm then gonna build kind of a pseudo tunnel here with my really dry stuff here, and then I got some sticks on top of it. I want it to look quite chaotic. That way the fire burns up and through and establishes a good fire. It's gonna burn down on top of that base, and I have a lot of good wood here right on the short run to bring to bear here in the fire. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab my ferro rod, my fire starters, and we'll get a fire started. So last but not least, as I got my little tunnel here where I'm gonna introduce my flame as I'm walking around working, you know, I've got leaves, I've got birch bark, I've got other accelerants, easy to light accelerants here that I'm gonna poke down in there, and that's what I'm gonna introduce my flame to help accelerate that fire. I'm quite a pack rat when it comes to out to getting stuff. Most guys in this situation would potentially have a cigarette lighter with them. I've limited myself to a ferro rod and a fire starter. So I'm just going to take my knife, my ferro rod. I'm going to start this fire outside of the fire and then transfer it in rather than try to start the fire inside my fire lay. So got my fire out here. I'm going to transfer my fire in to my fire lay. Now, if I've done everything else correctly, which I know I have, because I do this for a living, I should be able to drape this fire down on top of this, adding surface area and oxygen, and have a fire going in no time flat. I've put away my ferro rod so as not to lose it. I'll zip up my pack, move my jacket away from the fire here. And then my goal is to build a fire that I can walk away from. Right now the fire is struggling a little bit here. I want to make sure that I'm feeding that fire. I don't want to walk away from it before I feel that fire can survive on its own. So I'm feeding those smalls into that fire, allowing it to take off on its own. Not providing too much input to it, but enough that fire can keep going on its own. All right, guys, I'm hunkered in for the night. And don't forget what we've done here, guys. We've got our water, we scouted our location for our shelter, we built our crib, we built our shelter around our crib, and we started our fire. Whatever your situation you may find yourself in, this water shelter fire will get you through the night. It may not be comfortable, but it'll get you through the night. If you got any questions about how I built my shelter or how you may do it differently, please leave them in the comments below and we'll get back with you. All right, don't forget to like and subscribe. Tune in for next week's Smart Tips and Tricks. I kind of like upstate New York. This ain't so bad.